Hello everyone, myself Dr. Vineet Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Zoology, the Cochin College. Welcome back to our session Prawn Structural Diversity. Today we'll discuss the digestive system and mechanism of digestion. The digestive system in Penaeus comprises of the alimentary canal and the digestive gland, the hepatopancreas or the liver. The alimentary canal in Penaeus is divided into three regions: stomodium, mesodium, and proctodium. The stomodium is ectodermal in origin and hence its internal has an internal lining of the cuticle. The middle portion or the mesodium of the alimentary canal is lined by endoderm. The last or the terminal portion, the proctodium, is also formed by the ectoderm and hence the internal lining also has an internal lining of the cuticle. The stomodium and proctodium, as I said, it is lined by the cuticle and this cuticle is termed as intima. The stomodium consists of the opening of the alimentary canal called as a mouth and the cavity which leads from the mouth called as a buccal cavity, followed by esophagus and stomach. Mesodium consists of the intestine and proctodium consists of the rectum and the anus. We'll see one by one. First is the stomodium. In stomodium, the stomodium begins with the mouth, which is a mid-ventral longitudinal slit which is present between the third and the fourth segments, which is guarded by mandibles and the mouth parts. From the mouth or the opening leads to a cavity which is called as a buccal cavity, which is a very short chamber, and the cuticle is also irregular it is lined by an irregular cuticle lining. Following the cavity, the buccal cavity, is the very short very short tube called as a esophagus, which runs ventrally from the buccal cavity and opens into the stomach. Following the esophagus, you have the stomach, which is a spacious chamber which fills most of the cephalothoracic region. The stomach is again divided into two regions: the larger cardiac stomach and a smaller pyloric stomach. The cardiac stomach is mainly concerned with storage and grinding. The floor of the cardiac stomach is lined by, or it bears, many setae and spicules. The dorsal and lateral side of the cardiac stomach bears many tooth-like tentacles. These structures, that means the entire cardiac stomach or the entire all sides of the cardiac stomach, is having some of the other structures which is helping in grinding. The floor is having setae and spicules, whereas the roof as well as the sides are having many tentacles. These forms the structure which is called as an internal masticatory apparatus, otherwise called as a gastric mill, where internal mastication of the food occurs. So this gastric mill is nothing but an internal masticatory apparatus which is seen in the cardiac stomach. All the walls of the cardiac stomach is modified in such a way to form an apparatus which is called as an internal masticatory apparatus or the gastric mill. Following the cardiac stomach, you have the pyloric stomach, which is mainly functions for sorting as well as straining purpose. Here the cuticular lining is also having many, or it is very irregularly folded and divides the pyloric stomach into many compartments. And the pyloric stomach is also having a filtering apparatus which is also formed from a chitinous plate and many comb-like bristles which help in straining and sorting purposes. Coming to the second region of the alimentary canal, the mesodium, the pyloric stomach leads to a very straight and narrow tubular intestine. So from here till here you have the very long intestine. The intestine almost covers the entire length of the abdomen, as you can see in the figure. The third region of the alimentary canal is the proctodium. That is, the intestine leads to the rectum, and rectum opens out by the anus at the base of the telson. The anal opening is guarded by muscular sphincter. Muscular sphincter is nothing but the muscles which guard an opening. If a muscle is guarding an opening, such muscles or that group of muscle is usually called as a sphincter, and this is a muscular sphincter which is seen at the opening of the opening which is called as the anus. So these were the three regions of the alimentary canal. That was the stomodium from mouth to stomach. We saw in the stomach the two regions, a cardiac as well as pyloric stomach, followed by the mesodium, which was in the intestine, followed by the proctodium, the rectum, and the anus. Now we are going to see the only digestive gland in Peneus, which is the hepatopancreas, also called as the midgut gland or the liver. This particular hepatopancreas is bilobed, and it surrounds the lateral, ventral, and posterior portions of the stomach. You can see in the diagram the finger-like processes which is seen in this region, that is the hepatopancreas. And this is usually developed as an outgrowth of the midgut, which is called as the hepatic caeca. This hepatic caeca gradually develops into the hepatopancreas. The hepatopancreas is formed of numerous branching tubules which is held together by a connective tissue. There is a hepatopancreatic duct which arises from the gland and opens at the pyloric stomach. This serves as the liver and pancreas and the intestinal glands of what as seen in vertebrates. It does the function of all these three structures as seen in vertebrates. It secretes the enzymes like the lipolytic, proteolytic, amylolytic, that is carbohydrate, lipid, and proteins are digested by the enzymes from the hepatopancreas. It is also a site for storage of glycogen, fat, and also calcium. Another important function of hepatopancreas is that hepatopancreas can also absorb some digested food. It absorbs some digested food, and also it does some digestion process, and it stores the food. So this particular digestion that is happening inside the hepatopancreas is usually referred to as an intracellular digestion, which we'll see in the next session. The absorption as well as digestion in some amount happens in the hepatopancreas also. So it does the function of producing the enzymes for digestion, and also it digests certain amount of food, and also absorbs and stores certain amount of food. So three process is done by this particular important gland called as the hepatopancreas. It produces the digestive juices. At a smaller amount, it digests food inside the gland, and inside the gland it also stores food. So these are the three processes that happens inside the hepatopancreas. Coming to the mechanism of digestion, prawns are omnivores which feeds on small algae, small insects, and pelagic larvae. So how the feeding process occurs? The chelate legs are usually used to collect the food, and the chelate legs transfer it to the mouth. The second maxillae are used to push the food into the mouth, and mastication is done by the mandibles. The first level of mastication is done by the mandibles. The masticated food are pushed to the esophagus by maxillae and maxillipid. It does not swallow, it has to be pushed by the appendages. Peristaltic movement of the esophagus moves the food to the stomach. In the stomach, at the pyloric region, the digestive juices are mixed, and internal mastication also occurs, and rolling and pressing of the food also occurs, which so that the food is easily digested, and this process is called as churning that occurs in the stomach. Digestion is mostly extracellular, and that usually happens in the cardiac stomach. Intracellular digestion also occurs in the hepatopancreas. That is, as I said earlier, as the food passes from the pyloric stomach to the intestine, some amount of food which is passing, it goes through the hepatopancreatic duct, the duct which brings the enzyme. It moves through this particular duct into the hepatopancreas. When this small amount of food reaches the hepatopancreas, it is digested, and the digested food is either absorbed and also stored there, and this is called as the intracellular digestion that is happening in the hepatopancreas. Absorption mostly is done by the hepatopancreas, and some digested and undigested food passes to the intestine. The digested food is absorbed readily by the intestine. The undigested food is passed to the rectum and anus by peristaltic contractions of the gut wall. So this is the process of digestion, that is, or the mechanism of digestion that is happening in Peneus. We have discussed in this particular session the digestive system, the entire alimentary canal, as well as the mechanism of digestion in Peneus. Thank you.